I was in chronic pain, and my family struggling to make ends meet, food and gas prices going up, even keeping my job was iffy. Then I learned about a new miracle drug made in Washington, D.C., Spenditol. Spenditol is Washington's answer to all the painful problems Americans face. How to borrow $800 billion for a stimulus that didn't create jobs or fix the economy? Spenditol.
Spenditol is not for everyone. Side effects may include a mountain of government debt piled on our kids, a sudden loss of freedoms, higher prices for everything, leaving our kids a lesser America than we had. Ask your doctor or congressman if your conscience is strong enough for Spenditol.
And it's so popular in Washington, we have to import trillions more of it from China. Spenditol makes you feel better now and pushes off the really bad stuff till later.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is episode 29, and we're publishing on August 4th, 2011, just days after the U.S. Congress heroically rescued the country from the brink of certain financial ruin. If you believe the popular press, that is. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is Eric Dudas, along with the co-host of Fully Threaded. He's often called the most dangerous man in the online fastening game. He's Brian Musker.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and I hope business is good, really, really good. But so who calls me dangerous?
Well, it's meant just in the best of ways, Brian, I'm sure. And actually, I'm not at liberty to reveal that information for safety reasons.
Okay. This is sort of about as transparent as a congressional hearing.
Well, maybe so. But at least we're not borrowing large sums of money to keep it all afloat. And most of the people listening seem to be doing so by choice, as opposed to some kind of bureaucratic fiat.
Yeah, it's good to be solvent and free.
Let's just enjoy it while we can.
Right.
Well, folks, whatever your take on the recent spending and debt ceiling battles, we're back with more Fully Threaded Radio. And today's edition has lots to get your mind off the red ink.
Well, what's the rundown?
Since you asked, on our first feature segment, we'll hear from industry veteran Bruce Darling of Porteous Fastener Company. Bruce gave a wide-reaching presentation at the Pacific West Fastener Association back in June, and we were lucky enough to get a recording of that presentation courtesy of Vicki Lester. We boiled it down to 2 segments, and we'll be playing part 1 on today's show. Let me tell you, folks, the information Bruce shares during this talk will help you understand much of what's affecting our industry. And from an import and supply standpoint, it's just something that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing guy, Bruce.
Oh, it's true. And as I was editing the audio for this, I almost felt like I was sitting in a graduate course on fastener markets.
Yeah, right.
So this is a really good one, folks. During today's second feature segment, we'll talk with CEO of Computer Insights, Mr. Denny Cowhey. There are many users of Denny's Business Edge software out there in the Fully Threaded audience, and even more users of ERP systems in general. And this conversation will shed some light on some of the universal questions associated with selecting technology solutions for your business. We're also going to speak with Jay Queenin of Massachusetts-based Specialty Bolt and Screw. Jay's the current vice president of the NFDA, and that means the way the NFDA works, he'll be next year's president. We'll get acquainted with Jay and also ask him a question that sprouted up during the last episode regarding the global platform for fasteners. And we'll kick things off, as always, with the Fastener News Report presented by Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International magazine. He has a story in today's report that's sort of a capstone to the whole heads and threads situation, and he wraps up with some powerful thoughts on the so-called spending cuts that were just signed into law.
Well, he's pretty focused on the fastener industry, but He pays a lot of attention and writes well about other things.
Well, you got that right. And this is a good one from him.
Well, I guess to quote an Aussieism, that sounds like a hot lineup for a bloody hot summer.
I agree. Hey, folks, communicate with us at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com. You can also catch us on Twitter under the Twitter handle fullythreaded. We'd be happy to hear from you anytime. Just to remind everybody, we're the people who bring you FastenersClearinghouse.com, which is a sourcing network for the fastener industry. I hope you're all out there using it whenever the need comes up to find a hard-to-locate fastener inventory item. There's darn near 600,000 line items out there at this point, and you're welcome to use the network as a sourcing tool. And Brian, you are the keeper of the FCH website, and a couple of exciting things have been in the works lately. You've kind of kept us abreast from show to show on that, but lately you've been doing some serious revamping of the way that the FCH memberships work. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this is something that you and I have planned really for quite a long time. Most of what I'm doing is really behind the scenes stuff, and it really is to make our system more personal, user-centric rather than, I guess, member-centric. It's going to have a pretty dramatic effect for users in the near future, okay? And if you're an FCH user, you may receive an email from us if we set up a new account for you. Please follow it through and change your password to something better. And then we're going to follow that up with emails to our members just asking them to really check the layout of their accounts to make sure they're just set up the way they want, so we can, do a bit of a revamp and then move forward.
And the purpose of all of this is to add a lot more functionality into an FCH membership and give every member the ability to support more users in each account. Isn't that true?
Yes, it's twofold, but we have to do it in two stages. And one is to give, a lot more functionality to a user and a lot more ability to set their own preferences in terms of people and other companies, and for companies to do the same, to set up lists of friends and things like that. So, we've got a lot of work to do in it, but it'll be worth it for our users and members in the end.
Well, we've been teasing some of these features coming, and hopefully we'll have something to demonstrate in the near future. So keep your eye on what we're up to, folks, and I hope you'll all jump in. And I should point out again that it's always welcome when we hear from you, because some of our greatest ideas, some of the great changes that we're implementing really have come from our members and from others who have just made suggestions, communicated with us. We do appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, just within the last few days, we got a great suggestion from one of our newer members, a guy called J.R. Prowl at JHP Fasteners up in Michigan. And he made some suggestions relating to the way we should classify broaching and self-clinching fasteners. And he sent me probably the clearest definition I've ever seen of the difference between a broaching fastener and a self-clinching one. That's so thank you. Another great suggestion came from Bonnie Carter relating to our request for suggestions as to how to classify tools better, okay? This has been a sort of a longer running thing, and Bonnie sent us a great way of breaking down tools logically. And so I'm going to mash that up with a couple of other members and see if we can come up with a way that we can split tools into its own commodity and bring them much more into the forefront. So those are just a couple of really good examples of advice we get from members.
Well, it's all part of the network and leveraging from all the minds that are combined. It's just a great thing. The fastener community is got some real talent out there. Great tapping into it.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I saw your guest blog on the Traveling Salesman site last week. I think that was pretty good. There was a couple of good comments with it, too.
Yeah. It was nice to get a little bit of feedback on that. And yeah, speaking of kind of drawing on the fastener community, I was glad to get the opportunity, and I got several communications directly to the email address from that as well. I think a lot of people are a little nervous about still posting on a format like that, which I can understand. Obviously we're kind of letting it all hang out, but it's a useful tool for stimulating conversation.
Yeah, this is a industry that, you have to do a bit of work, bit of stirring to get that stimulation.
Right. And I've been doing a lot of experimentation with Twitter lately. And I'll tell you one thing about Twitter. You almost universally either get immediate acceptance or you get a major, eye roll, like a major sigh of just disgust when you bring Twitter up, because there's still a lot of resistance to it. People just don't get the point. But I'll tell you, if you put a little bit of time into it, and I'm not necessarily advocating that this is the right thing for everybody to be doing, but there is a lot out there. And I've got an account that is completely unrelated to fasteners that I've been using for experimenting. Of course, the fully threaded account is still out there, and that's doing what it's doing. But, man, it truly is the CB radio of the modern era.
Right. Actually, we were discussing that fact on the drive up fishing, that the way that people use some of these tweets is very, very similar to what was once a CB. It's just, your audience is a billion times bigger.
Yeah, potentially. You have the whole thing of who are you following or how do you format your tweets, that's for sure, and that's all part of the experimentation, but it has that potential. Why? Because unlike a walkie-talkie or a CB, the days of yore, or a cell phone communication, this is a broadcast communication on an open channel. And you can do a lot of things with that if you use a little creativity.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a couple of new users out there from the Fastener world that I saw lately. One of them is Bright & Best. They came on, believe it or not. Our good friend Rob Lucas and Fidelis Fasteners is out there now. And Beacon Fasteners and Components.
Cool.
And if you read the post, which I know you did, on Fastener Talk last week, there was another little tidbit about Beacon, and that is that they are the first title sponsor of Fully Threaded Radio. And starting episode 30, that's the next episode, you're going to be hearing some of their ads, and welcome Beacon.
Well, their ads no doubt will be as creative as their print advertising, because that really stands out.
Well, way to set the expectations there, Bri. We're working on it, though, man.
Oh, okay. So maybe the Beacon people might be listening to this. That'd be good.
Something tells me you might be right. You never know, though.
Well, good.
We could see the clicks, we just can't tell who they are.
Yeah, except when they come running up to us at the various shows we're at and say, "Oh, I love Fully Threaded."
Yeah, that's always a good thing. That's for
just
sure.
Got an email in from another of our good members, a guy called Dan Zender from Trinity Logistics, and he says, "Love listening to Fully Threaded when I have time." That's only minutes ago.
You got to like it. Oh, and speaking of Twitter also, we were up at a meeting up in Winona a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this sign up in one of their training rooms, and it was talking about MRO, and there was something on there that didn't quite make sense to me in terms of MRO, because I always thought the definition of MRO was maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Well, the sign said maintenance, repair, and operations. So I decided to put out a tweet about it, and lo and behold, screwcrew.com just came through a few minutes ago, and he pointed out my folly.
So Andy's just keeping you on track, okay?
That's right. A practical application of Twitter as we speak.
Good. Okay.
I mean, I got to tell you, when we're out there trying to get the ball rolling a little bit in Fastener land with Twitter, it is a little bit slow. You still see a lot of people that are just, frankly, it's more spam. There's some news releases and that out there, and that's cool. I mean, that's part of it for sure. But just the basic so-called engagement that all these social media experts are talking about, not all that much of that is happening out there.
Well, yeah, but it will come. I mean, go back 4 or 5 years, and it's a little bit of a replay of the feedback from trying to sell fasteners on the web. Okay, 5 years ago, people were thinking, well, you don't really do this. The web, isn't a place to sell anything.
Right.
Amazon and eBay, later. Okay, you can sell the web.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm putting some of this time into the experimentation. I don't know what I'm going to find yet, but doggone it, I'll at least be there when it unfolds, I guess.
Well, good.
But you got to kind of stay focused on on these different things as they emerge, and if you can, you'll be focused on one of the right things, right?
Right. Unfortunately, we can't know in advance which one that is going to be.
Exactly. If you catch the right train, you're a genius, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the definition of, the superstar entrepreneurs are the ones who happen to get on the right train at the right station.
You mean the ones who make the right mistakes?
Yeah.
I ought to be a zillionaire by now if that's how it's based.
It's not entirely based that way, though.
No, I can tell you that from personal experience.
Right.
So I'm focusing on Twitter and probably a dozen other things that aren't going to make me rich, but our next segment is the Fastener News Report, and that's being presented by Mike McNulty, and I could tell you what he's focused on.
Yep, and that's the fastener industry.
You got that right. Here's Mike.
Thanks, Eric, and greetings to all the fully threaded radio listeners out there. This is Mike McNulty with the Fastener News Report, brought to you by Fastener Technology International, your print and digital magazine for the fastener industry. Well, Eric, the dog days of summer are officially here, and the good news in Ohio is that my parents and millions of other seniors are going to get their Social Security checks this month. The Cleveland Indians are only a few games out of first place, and I am still focused on the fastener industry. Okay, our lead story today is about fastener sales, earnings, and demand growth. The latest quarterly reports from publicly traded companies that are involved in the fastener industry are pointing to a positive trend of increased sales, earnings, and demand. In comparison to 2010, the financial numbers look really good. For example, Precision Castports reports a sales rise of 16% and income growth of 20%. Fastenal's turnover jumped 23% and its net profit was 36% higher. Nucor's earnings rose by 88% on a 6% increase in sales. Annixter's income improved by 51% while its revenue went up by 18%. Carpenter's profit quadrupled on a 31% rise in sales. Grainger set new records for quarterly sales and earnings per share. And both ITW and BE Aerospace reported nice increases in profits and sales volume. In a recent news posting, GlobalFastenerNews.com reported that demand for aerospace and automotive fasteners continued to make strong gains in the most recent quarter, with double-digit percentage growth recorded at the end of July. And other applications, including construction and industrial, are also experiencing increases in demand. Geographically, fastener sales in Europe were especially robust. Volume in Asia stayed strong, and fastener sales in the USA also grew, but at a slower pace. Fastener Technology's internal observations that are gained from talking to fastener industry folks can be summarized in the following 3 points. Number 1, not many companies are singing the blues anymore. Number 2, most people are experiencing guarded optimism. And number 3, business has vastly improved over the last 2 years, but most folks are still operating under the umbrella of uncertainty. In his latest economic forecast published in the American Fastener Journal, Dr. Jeff Dietrich writes that there is no negative growth cycle in sight for capital goods, automobiles, and machinery. He also says that companies should be buying and installing new machinery this year. This all sounds good for people and companies that are involved in the fastener industry. Now let's move on to our Fastener Newsmaker highlights. First up, Mike Wren, formerly president of Heads and Threads, has joined Brighton Best as VP of Business Development and Product Manager. Mike will be located in Brighton's Chicago branch, and his main role will be to develop the company's metrics line in the USA. Ohio Rod Products, a division of Elgin Fastener Group, has hired Mark Lamardo for the position of Product Engineer. Mark has been instrumental in the transition and startup of machinery that EFG acquired earlier this year with their purchase of Silo Fasteners. He will focus on machine capability and new product line development. McDermott has promoted Gary Sikora to North American Product Manager, Anti-Corrosion Coatings. Gary has worked in the metal finishing industry for 30 years, 9 of which were with McDermott. Powers Fasteners has added Stephen Ludwig to its team of fastening and anchoring professionals. Stephen will serve as director of the newly developed Electric Tools and Accessories segment. He will work closely with Matthew Chamberlain, Vice President of Engineering and Product, to serve the expanding market for anchor drilling and setting tools. Wafios, the international wire and fastener industry machine supplier, is seeking a regional sales manager to manage sales activities in the Northeast United States. The job will be based out of Wafios Machinery Corporation headquarters in Branford, Connecticut. EFC International has been selected by KIP Incorporated to be an authorized North American distributor of KIP handles, knobs, plungers, and cam levers. Semblix Corporation has added hex stick recess drive systems from Phillips screws to its licensed product offerings. This new system offers stability and alignment in one-handed applications. And our final newsmaker headline this report is Alkin Ziegler is selling surplus equipment after its consolidation into a new facility in Taylor, Michigan. The new facility is home to more than 25 cold formers. Surplus equipment available is located in the Kalkaska, Michigan facility, and it includes National Machinery bolt formers and nut makers, as well as Hadber parts formers. Finally, Eric, let's turn over to the back page of this report for some of my comments on the debt and spending reduction deal made in Washington. So we have a deal on government spending and debt accumulation. The good news here is that taxes are not rising and default and lower credit ratings have been avoided for now. The bad news is that the deal is super complicated, there are no real spending cuts, and both federal spending and the accumulation of debt will continue to rise for at least 17 more months. For me, this is all about simple mathematics. The government has just given itself permission to keep spending around $10 billion every day, including weekends and holidays, while it only collects $6 billion a day in tax revenue. That's another $4 billion credit card being opened up and maxed out every day until the end of 2012, courtesy of the people that want to decide what we eat, what we drive, and what we create. Here's my take on what we really need from Washington, D.C. A limited government that spends less, taxes less, and encourages the private sector to grow in all areas, not just general business areas, but in all industries, including healthcare, charitable services, education, and retirement savings. Instead, we have a government that has doubled its spending in the last 10 years while trying to control and influence pretty much everything. A final positive to come out of all of this spending and debt drama is that in this age of unlimited information access, maybe we have reached the tipping point where the fat government spending cat is finally out of the bag, and the sly and sometimes crazy face of government growth is on full display for everyone to see. Oh, and one more good thing. Congress is taking recess for a month. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International bringing you the Fastener News Report. Visit fastenertech.com to learn more about the fastener industry and send your news, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
It's fully threaded. Stick around.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Are you going to the Pac West Conference in Denver?
I'm not sure.
There will be lots of good education.
Like what?
A panel on domestic fastener manufacturing moderated by Eric Dudas from Fully Threaded Radio.
What else?
A program on social media marketing.
What else?
A class on fastener plating and coating taught by Brian Christensen from South Holland Metal Finishing.
What else?
A tabletop show with 20 exhibitors.
What else?
They have a party room at the Rockies vs. Giants baseball game Saturday night.
Tell me more.
It all happens September 15th through 17th at the Sheraton downtown in Denver.
How can I learn more?
Visit www.pac-west.org or call 714-484-4747.
I'd be nuts to miss the Pac West Conference in Denver. Let's go.
This is JR from JHP Fasteners, the precision fabricators and distributors' #1 source. Come visit us and the Fully Threaded crew on Facebook and Twitter for the latest in fastener news and facts. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
We like to stay abreast of the goings-on at the NFDA, and during the last episode, we came across a question that we wanted to get answered, so we thought we'd invite NFDA Vice President Jay Queenin aboard with us. He's also the COO of Specialty Bolt and Screw. They're based out of Agawam, Massachusetts. Jay, welcome to Fully Threaded.
Eric, thanks for having me on today.
Say, before we get to the question on the global platform for fasteners, please introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about what you're doing over at Specialty, and how did you come to be the Vice President of the NFDA?
Thanks. I joined Specialty Bolt about 6 years ago, and Specialty Bolt and Screw is the largest independent fastener distributor in New England. We are, as you said, we're located in Agawam, Massachusetts, and we also have locations in Valcourt, Quebec, and in Juarez, Mexico. And basically, the services that we provide to our customers focus on servicing OEMs with vendor-managed inventory solutions and engineering support. As I said, I joined the company about 6 years ago. I never thought I'd be involved in the fastener industry. While my father was here at the beginning of the company, and Kevin, who many people know, and I worked here while I was in high school and college. I ran away as far as possible from this industry, but about 6 years ago, after much prodding, I decided to come back and join my father Kevin and my brother John in running this family company. I mean, I saw it as a growing company. It was great. But it was much different than what I did before. I spent about 8 years practicing law. I was in the Middlesex District Attorney's Office and in the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office. In various functions. I did policy making, administrative work, and various prosecutorial functions. So, it was funny when I came on board. Everyone said, once you get involved in this industry, you never leave.
That's right.
So I guess that's true. And even though I was involved back in the 80s, I guess it all comes around, and I joined. I'm back in the industry in the 2000s. So it's been great. And one of the things that I've always, whether it's been in the legal side or now in the fastener side, is the importance of professional associations. Obviously I've been a member here in the Northeast Fastener Distributor Association, and it's been a great honor to be involved in the NFDA over the last couple of years, and I look forward to pushing the industry forward and working to advance our causes.
That's so interesting. There are a lot of stories that are variations on yours about people getting into the industry. So,
well, I guess I'm stuck in this now for the rest of my life. That's what everyone says.
So they would have you believe.
Exactly.
Well, you're probably very well suited to answer the next question, and that is related to a press release that came out recently, and we talked about it on the previous episode of Fully Threaded Radio, and it had to do with the NFDA's revision of a policy toward international members. They basically have discontinued that practice. In the course of that press release, there was mention of the global platform on fasteners. We made some jokes about it being close to GPF, the old Windows blow up your computer message. But I thought it would be nice to get some clarification from someone at the NFDA. What exactly is the global platform for fasteners?
The global platform for fasteners is kind of a coordinating organization that the North Americans will work with the Europeans as well as the Taiwanese just to advance the interests of the fastener industry. Now the best thing about the NFDA that I can see over the last couple of years is they've had a willingness to change, and and we're always looking for ways to bring values to our members. And I know that a couple of years back, we and the board made a decision to invite international members into our association. It was just again another willingness of the NFDA to try to change and to adapt to the times. What we found was that while it may have been a good idea in theory, in practice it just didn't work. It just didn't work. I think that what we found was that there were associations both in Asia and Europe that represented the interests of of their members. And as of June of this year, after 2 years of promoting the program, we didn't have any international members. So what we decided to do was refocus our efforts. And what we decided to do was continue our work on the global platform for fasteners, and that means that we will continue our coordination between the associations both in Asia and Europe and in North America. Mark Leonard, who's the executive director of NFDA, and myself are planning to attend the Taiwan Fastener Trading Association show in December of 2011, and it really just allows the associations a forum to coordinate and talk. I mean, we've had Stephen Fang over from Taiwan as well as the European representatives. It just basically allows us to communicate and keep in touch with what's going on because our industry is worldwide now. Our industry is worldwide, but we made the decision to refocus our efforts to bring value to members in North America, rather than try to pursue international members. The other thing we did was, again, to bring value to our members, was to organize trade shows. We did a trade show over in brought our members over to Germany in February of 2011, and we're planning a trade show for going to Brazil in November of November of this year. So again, our focus, will be going forward, working and bringing value for our members in North America, as well as coordinating our activities through the global platform on fasteners with both the Asians and the Europeans.
Well, thank you for explaining that. Now, one other thing you mentioned in terms of coordinating between associations, the NFDA is doing that a little bit stateside, and that's with some of the regional associations, right? What's going on there?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, it continues to be a difficult time for professional associations, whether you're in the fastener industry or any other industry out there. I mean, professional associations are shrinking. That's just a fact. I think that the best thing about NFDA is, again, our willingness to change and bring value to our members. So what we've decided to do is we've initiated discussions with a lot of the regional associations, as well as some of the other associations involved in our industry, including the IFI and others, to see how we can better work together. Because I think that being in the industry for about 6 years now, the one thing I've recognized is that there's a lot of history. And, there's a lot of history is the diplomatic way to put it. But I think that people like myself and others recognize that we're only going to be strong if we work together. And, how do we work together? How do we bring educational opportunities to both, the national members as well as the local members? How do we coordinate our activities to advocate for issues that are important to our industry? Again, it's going to be a long process, but I think that we're willing to change at the NFDA. We're convinced that the regionals are looking for a partner, and we hope that over the next couple of years we can all, as an industry, work together to better advocate on behalf of our interests.
Hey, makes sense. And what's coming up in the next couple of months for the NFDA?
We're very excited about a number of events we have scheduled around the Las Vegas show that's happening in October. On October 18th, we're going to be having a networking and cocktail reception out in Las Vegas for our members. And then on October 19th, we're going to be having 2 sessions. The first session is really geared towards sales and purchasing people around negotiation skills, and the other session will be geared more towards executives dealing with supply chain risk. We're very pleased. We're bringing in an individual who is in charge of global risk intelligence strategies for Marsh Insurance, just to talk about how we as owners and executives of distributors, can work through some of the supply chain disruption issues that we're experiencing in the past year or so, and they will continue to come up. So, we're very excited that we can do these types of events at a show where everybody goes to. And then what we will do is we will then do our city show or our city event in the spring in Atlanta, which we're very happy about. We're trying to coordinate that with the Southeast Fastener Association, again, to advance, the coordination among the NFDA and the regional associations. So I think it's just a very exciting time for the NFDA and for the industry in general, with all the changes that are going on and kind of retooling our mission to bring as much value to our members as possible.
Well, I know you caught a lot of people's attention with that merging of the fall meeting and the Vegas show. It seems to make a lot of sense to me, and I wish you well there. We will see you out there for sure. And Jay, I sure do appreciate you joining us for Fully Threaded Radio.
Excellent, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
We've been talking with Jay Queenin. He's the Vice President of the NFDA and the COO at Specialty Bolt & Screw.
Let's begin, pal.
Thank you, Andy. Well, it's good to see you. Let's talk about our industry. Let's see where we're going. This first slide tells almost all of it. We're about steel. What steel does, we do. And what happens to steel happens to us. But a 3-minute talk isn't worth a good meal like this, so I've thrown in a few extras toward the end that we'll talk about. We're going to look at low-carbon steel. The reason I choose low-carbon, and I do move around, by the way, because I'm a nervous kind of guy. When we choose low-carbon steel, we can compare countries. The two bigger countries at the moment providing most of our fasteners are still Taiwan and China. We will talk about other countries tonight. So we'll compare low-carbon steel per the metric ton in Taiwan and China. If your business is medium carbon and grade 5s is your big item or stuff like that, say tapping screws, which is almost that kind of steel, you add about $75 a metric ton. If we're talking the high carbon, the grade 8 kind of steel for grade 8s for sockets, well then add about $250 to these numbers and you're close. The numbers are not exact. The numbers come from our vendors, they come from the newspapers, and they come from however we can figure it out. Remember, China Steel, which is Taiwan, normally announces price increases on steel once a quarter. Over the last year or so, that's changed. They started talking about a month number, followed up about a month later with the next 2 months. So they're giving themselves a little room to move that price within the quarter. China, they'll announce a steel increase anytime they want to. In bad times, it can happen different in the morning than it is in the afternoon. So there's a lot of steel changes in China depending on who you're buying your steel from. The first slide here goes back to 2003. Remember the good old days? Gosh, back when steel was $364 out of Taiwan, in China $375. Now that's a bit of an anomaly there. China is always below Taiwan. We'll see a couple of chances or a couple of spots here where it's not the case. China is usually 15, 18% below Taiwan. At this moment in time, they were actually just slightly higher than Taiwan. But look at the fourth quarter 2009. We see a 13.9% difference. That's normal. That product, fourth quarter 2009, that's what's on your shelves. That's what you're selling today. And that's what's happened to steel in that period of time. First quarter 2010, Taiwan jumped up 9%. Raised their price on their steel. China pretty much held their price steady. And so we're looking at a 24% difference. That's unusual. China's not usually that far below Taiwan. But look what happened the next quarter. Taiwan says, oop, we moved and China didn't, so we better ease ourselves back down. And China says, gosh, we missed the train. Taiwan moved their steel price. Everything's shifting to Taiwan, so we've got to get in there. So they raised their price quite substantially, 24%. It normally does not move that much. The third quarter, Taiwan is saying, well, it shouldn't have gone down. Look what China did. So they come on back up 15%, and China says that 24/7 didn't hold. The business is moving back to Taiwan, so they downed their price about 10%. But we're looking at $750 steel, $596 steel, and look at 2003. And 2003 was by no means the bottom. That's just what we had been living with back then. Fourth quarter 2010, 760, just slightly up, and 662, China moved back up. We've now got a difference of 14.8%. That's perfectly normal. And that's about the difference between the two countries and what you normally see. First quarter of 2011, 810, 719. When I talk later, I'm going to actually say that steel didn't go up in Taiwan at this period of time, and yet I'm showing you 7.6%. It wasn't steel. It was the weak U.S. dollar. Us importers buy in U.S. dollars. Lots of years ago, we used to play games and hedge against the yen, and most of the importers lost their butt when the yen fell. So we now buy in U.S. dollars. We understand them. In doing so, the U.S. dollar got weak, so the price went up, even though steel held pretty close to the same. In China, we're looking at 719. Again, they're about 12% difference in that. Second quarter, which is where we're placing POs now, the product's not here. We're receiving that first quarter stuff. We're at 885. Taiwan did move up a bit. We're looking at China at 745, a slight increase in China. The third quarter, 885. Taiwan, just a while back, announced no change in their price of steel, and China moved just slightly. Now, as we look at Taiwan, we're talking about almost quarterly moves. 1 month, 2 months, 1 month, 2 months. When you're looking at China, you could be looking at a lot of little changes that make up these numbers. I'm just taking the same moment in time of Taiwan to show you what the Chinese number is. Low carbon steel in Taiwan normally does not come from China steel. They several years ago decided to almost stop making low carbon steel. So most of the manufacturers in Taiwan are importing their steel. They're importing it at about $50 a metric ton below these numbers. So that's where they're getting their steel. The weakness of the U.S. dollar is causing us problems, and that's a major thing that's happening. It has been affecting the prices the last 2 quarters more than actually movement of steel has been doing. It doesn't affect the price in China as much because China's country, the yuan, is held steady by the country. It doesn't matter what the U.S. dollar does. They decide what they want the yuan to be, and they just hold it there. They are slowly devaluing it a little bit, though. Let's look at what else has been happening. I'm going to go back a little bit of time, but won't dwell on it long. August of 2009, nickel production in China is about 25% below their consumption. Nickel is a big item in stainless steel. But China addresses these problems a little different than certainly we do here in most of the other countries. The Chinese decided to go to Canada and cut deals with the nickel miners in Canada who couldn't get financing from the banks in Canada. Remember, we're in bad shape here at the first of 2009, and the banks are not being friendly to businesses. So the Canadian miners in Canada couldn't really get money. China came over with lots of money and says, we'll do what's called the deal, we'll do a takeoff contract with you, which means you mine nickel, we will take it off of your hands, we will smelter it in China, because China has a lot of capability for that. So they've cut a deal with Canada to get their nickel back up. January 2010, a report about China again, about surging demand for steel. Chinese steel was being manufactured and produced about 10%, 12% below their needs. China needed some steel. So those steel mills that were old, that they had shut down because they were such polluters, began to produce again. The big steel mills increased their production of steel. To do that, they needed more iron ore. So Rio Tinto, Australia, who's the largest iron ore producer in the world, said, we will support you. We will increase our mining. We're going to talk about Rio Tinto in China again in a moment because that was a pretty delicate thing for them to come to that agreement. The other big producer is Vale in Brazil. Vale says, we will support you. We will do that. So they're now bringing in enough iron ore to increase their capacity of steel by about 10%. There's a report from Melbourne, Australia, that China has cut a deal to supply coal. This is metallurgical coal used in the steelmaking, and it's about an $8 billion contract. Now, this is a private thing between China and a private firm. Australia has just about approved it. It's still going through part of the process of the country being approved. But what they have done is said, we need 30 million tons of coal every year for 20 years. Now, we will pay the market price, but it's a 20-year contract. Now, when you're buying 30 million tons, you're not really paying market contract, believe me. You're buying it a little below that market because you're certainly taking a lot of the production coming out of Australia. This is likely to go through. China took care of the nickel problem. They've now taken care of their coal problem. These don't affect us directly at the moment, but it affects our industry because this is where steel is going to come from, and we are definitely steel related. Here it is, February the 11th. China indicts 4 Rio Tinto executives on charges of bribery and on charging of stealing government secrets. You know what the government secret was that they stole? Is that they negotiated how much iron ore does China need. Well, to do that, they said, how much steel do you produce? And the executives in China told them how much steel they produce. That's against the law. That's a government secret to disclose how much steel you produce in China. And you being executives negotiating with your vendor isn't sort of one of the things you ask or your customer is how much business are we going to do to try to figure it out. Well, this is scaring some of the executives. It's affecting a little bit of people being willing to go to China, invest in China, and feeling comfortable doing the business in China. You could go to jail by just doing business. So it's affecting. The diplomats are now involved. They're involved for a couple of reasons. One is Rio Tinto is the same company that says, don't worry about that 10% need. We will step up and we'll produce that iron ore for you. Okay? So they've got to make this thing go away. And yet they've got a Chinese government group that says, you're indicted. We're going to send you to jail. Has not been settled, but my guess is nobody's going to go to jail. Not over this one. April the 9th, some of our major trading companies in China started talking to us about the labor problem in China. China has today a labor problem. The government had already told the factory to expect a 15 to 20% increase in wages that you're going to have to pay. To keep an experienced bolt maker that you have trained is costing them probably 25 to 30%. So wages are going up in China. The business went to China primarily and partly because they had cheap labor. They are losing that edge of cheap labor. We'll talk about it a little bit in a moment, but that pushes the momentum that says you may have to now go to Vietnam. You may have to now go to Malaysia. We've got to look for where is the cheap labor. Now, labor is a small part of bolts and nuts. But when you're talking about 25 and 35% increases, it starts to show up on the bottom line. So that's what's happening in China. There's other stuff going up. The government is also saying if you want to open a new business in China, it would be very expensive for you to think you're going to do it in Beijing, in Shanghai, just north of Hong Kong. But if you want to go over in the middle of China, there's plenty of workers. They are cheap. We will subsidize your industries and we'll get you electricity. So they're pushing the new industries now into the central part of China. China's got a little bit of a civil war kind of problem. They're not even close to that. But the people unrest is beginning to happen in China. Okay, and they're trying to figure out how to put that to bed. Well, the easiest way to do it is put everybody to work. Let them start making money. Let them buy a refrigerator. Do you know how many refrigerators China can use with 2 billion people? And they basically don't have that. So we're talking a big industry here that they're trying to protect. September 7 is feast or famine. Remember a couple of notches ago up here I told you that they were about 10% behind on their steel up here on the January 11. Their steel production was 10% too short, so they boosted it all up. The government came in and said, wait a minute. We projected energy reduction. And to meet energy reduction, you steel mills in Beijing need to shut down for 30 days and not produce any steel. The largest steel mill there in Hebei City was told to reduce the production by 1,000 metric tons for a period of 4 months. 17 steel mills were just shut down because the government said, we're going to reduce the industry, reduce the use of energy because we have an electrical problem and we don't want the lights to go out. So they're willing to mess up a little bit of a short-term gain for a long-term promise that they have made. So now they're having a little trouble with steel again. January 4th, that was when Nucor raised their price. Each commodity was a little bit different. The total was about 5%. Steel is going up in this country. And Nucor reacted to that. Usually when Nucor reacts to steel, they name 2 or 3 things that has caused it. This announcement was steel. We have to raise our price because of domestic cost of steel. And remember, Nucor is one of the big producers of domestic steel, so they certainly know the market. January the 3rd, China Steel announced no price increase. My slide showed that the price did go up. The price went up because of the U.S. dollar getting weak. Us importers buying in U.S. dollar, when the U.S. dollar gets weak, instead of getting 30 or 31 NT dollars for a U.S. dollar, they only get 28.5. They've got to raise their prices because they are losing money because of our dollar. So the slide showed prices went up a bit, but it was caused by the weak U.S. dollar. This is a day that I'll remember. On January 24th, I got the call from Bob Porteous that said, Don Haggerty has resigned from Porteous. You're the one that knew what he was doing. Will you come back and take over the 2 departments again, inventory control and purchasing? My question was, do I have to move back to L.A. because I live in Minden, Nevada? And he said, no, you won't. I said, then I'm your guy. If I could stay in Minden, I'll do it. I've been working for Porteous then about 4 days a week and enjoying it, working behind the scenes, supporting the people who had supported me for 22 years with Porteous. And believe me, when you get to that age and have that opportunity, that's a really neat idea of you get to support the people who made you famous. And that's what it was a lot of fun to do. Since then, have been working 5 days a week again. Not going to move back to L.A. And in a minute, I'll tell you what moved me to 7 days a week and about 12 hours a day. Price increases. As China New Year happens, and China New Year runs from near the end of January to pretty late in February, even some years. As you approach Chinese New Year, everybody talks about prices are going to go up. Okay? They take a week off because they're going to all go get drunk, and then they come back on Monday morning and Tuesday, Wednesday, by then they're sober, and the factory's all open again. But on this year, we were experiencing price increases in early January. The prices were going up before Chinese New Year, and that is not normal. But we were seeing prices increase at that time, depending on the commodity, from 5 to 10%. And normally they wait till Chinese New Year, come back, announce price increases, and everybody goes back to work. Well, this year it was different. January, Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Steel decided they would merge. That formed the number 2 steel mill in the world with their capacities. That's big time, okay, producing a lot of steel. The number 1 steel mill in the world is Alexer Metall of Luxembourg. I don't know the steel company. It's European. I know they're huge, and that's the largest in the world. This combination now of Nippon and Sumitomo is now number 2. Number 3 is Bao Steel. Bao Steel is the big producer in China, and their largest steel mill, the one that speaks for all the China steel mills when they negotiate their iron ore contracts, their coal contracts. Bao Steel is always the spokesman. Number 4 is POSCO Steel. We all know POSCO Steel. That's the big one in Korea, and that's where their steel is coming from POSCO Steel. China Steel in Taiwan is probably number 11 or 12. So they're down the chain a little bit of the steel mills. The government is encouraging the steel mills to merge, for the big ones to gobble up the little ones. And when that occurs, we've got less competition out there in the field a bit. January 31, U.S. Alpha National Resources, an agreement to acquire Massey Energy. Remember Massey Energy? That's the one where the mine fell in and killed the workers. And still some big lawsuits yet to happen on that and to be settled. So they have agreed now to merge in with Alpha. In doing so, they're going to become the third largest coal mining entity in the world. They will have 110 mines and over 5 billion tons of coal reserve. That's big time. And we're talking about those two big giants came together and formed a pretty big one to become number 3 in the world. That's going to affect us through the supply chain because you've got to have coal to make that steel. February 4th was when Heads and Threads ceased their normal operations. They laid off quite a bit of their clerical staff, some of their corporate staff, and non-essential staff. They kept their sales staff and they kept their warehouse staff to keep the company going as they started to liquidate the company and bring it down. So that was quite a change. I'll talk about it again in a moment. China passes Japan as the number 2 economy in the world. China is now at $5.88 trillion at the end of 2010. Japan was at $5.47 trillion. These are big numbers, but China became number 2. The United States is $14.66 trillion. China is $5.88 trillion. So we're still 2.5 times bigger. But think in your own mind, our growth today compared to what's happening in China today. They're coming after us. But that's big time that they've become number 2.
We'll have part 2 of Bruce Darling's Pac West presentation on the next episode, and stay tuned now for Denny Cowhey on Fully Threaded.
This is Tom Buddenbone. I am the membership chair for the NFDA and the partner in Technology Components Southwest. I'd like to invite you to consider membership in the NFDA. Some of the benefits to membership include tremendous industry networking, business education via the Institute for Trend Research, economic insights with the quarterly trend reports from a service that's provided to us, global perspective when buying and selling all over the world, tremendous benefit in information sources from Asia and Europe, gives you an opportunity to strengthen your relationship with other members, both suppliers and distributors. We offer an annual meeting that has ESPS session, which are a series of 30-minute scheduled meetings with existing companies you do business with, and more importantly, for companies that you don't do business with and want to learn a little more about. Our goal is to gain new members, both distributors and associates or manufacturers and large importers, and we also want to invite back those that have dropped out of NFDA in the past due to some of the economic issues of the past couple of years. It's a great association with great members. Please take a peek at www.nfda-fastener.org, or you can call the office for NFDA at area code 312-673-4900. Thank you again, Tom Buddenbone with Technology Components and the NFDA.
This is Sue Rice with the FCH team. It's my job to make sure that as an FCH member, you receive the highest possible benefit from your participation in the network. Did you know that once you're logged into FCH, you have access to exclusive search tools, site statistics, and tracking information about your inventory and source finder inquiries? It's all just a click away, and I'm happy to walk you through it. If it's time to refresh your inventory, don't worry. We'll run your listings through our scrubber software and get you up and running in a very short time. If you can attach a spreadsheet to an email, you can list inventory on FCH. We can also show you how to optimize your listings to attract the most hits for your type of fastener. Send email to Sue at fastenersclearinghouse.com and let me help you get the most from the FCH sourcing network. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Hi, this is Lori at Viking Bolt in Portland, Oregon, and you are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
We're joined now by Denny Cowhey, CEO of Computer Insights, purveyors of Business Edge software. Denny, welcome to Fully Threaded.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's nice to be here.
Denny, many of our listeners are Business Edge users. We talk to them all the time when we're working the phones for Fasteners Clearinghouse. And, of course, over the years, many folks have met you at the shows and so forth, and your crew. Why don't we get started? If you could just give us a little bit of an idea how you got started in this business, how long you've been doing it, and kind of set the table for us that way.
Oh, sure. We started in 1981, so this is our 29th year, and we originally were a custom programming company. There were no packages at that time, and in fact, it was before the PC, or the PC was just coming out at that time. So what we would do is we'd go to people and we'd say, what would you like your computer to do? And they'd tell us, and then we would write the specific programs that they wanted. Most of our clients were distributors and light manufacturers, and so because we were headquartered in Chicago, that's kind of that's the market that we found ourselves in. And so the software we were developing was basically distribution and manufacturing software. About 18 years ago, my son came to me. My son, who is now the president of the company, came to me and said, Dad, we're wasting our time. We shouldn't be doing custom programming. We better write a package, and we better write the software once and sell it many times and give people the benefit of all this technology that we're developing rather than having only one customer be able to get it. So I agreed with him, and we went around and we convinced all of our custom programming clients to go off the custom program and go on to our new package, which we call the Business Edge. At that time, we decided that we were going to pick a particular industry to focus on, and I decided on the fastener industry for several reasons. First of all, it was a well-organized industry. That you could clearly tell the fastener companies were a group of people you could market to. They had only a couple of industry meetings, and they had a couple of magazines that were providing information to the industry. They had very, very serious inventory problems because of all the different units of measure and the long part numbers and the multiple alternate part numbers and the kits and the secondary processes and the lot control. I mean, just a lot of things that were just very difficult to handle with fasteners. So I decided that was a pretty good market to go after, and it turns out it was right. Ever since we started that, we have not marketed to any other industry at all.
We were talking before we started recording, and you mentioned that you started a blog at www.fastenersoftware.blog.com, and in that blog you describe all sorts of issues related to ERP deployment. And I'm curious, does the blog focus on Business Edge software or on the fastener distribution side of things, or really what does that touch on?
Over the years, now I've been at this for 30 years, and actually a few years before I started Computer Insights. And over the years, I've seen many companies go through the process of selecting and implementing and training on new software, data conversions and what have you. And I can tell when we start working with a client how successful they can be based on the way they approach it. And one of the things that I'm very concerned about when we get a new client is that we make sure that they have done their homework and that they know what they're getting into. And some people don't. Some people get distracted. They get all excited about a bell or a whistle or something that doesn't have any return on investment for them. And so what I did with this blog is I just started it, and I'm trying to give people some information like guidelines of the way they ought to go about making the decision. And they might make a decision for us, they might make a decision for somebody else. That doesn't make any difference. But what I want to do is I want to see them make a decision that's going to make sense for their company and have them be successful. There's too many stories out there about people who buy systems and then fail. You know, they spend $1 million, you know, and when they're all done, they throw it out. And that's bad for everybody. It's bad for our industry. It's bad for your industry. It's bad for, you know, it's bad for. It shouldn't be, and you can avoid it if you take the time to think it through and apply what seems like common sense, but what doesn't happen a lot of times. So that's what the blog's about. And I'm hoping to start a dialogue. So far, it's all been one way. I've been, you know, explaining some of the situations you can get into, but I haven't really, you know, I haven't publicized it too much yet. I just get there should be articles in Link and American Fastener Journal this issue about it, and hopefully I'll get some feedback. But I'm hoping to start a dialogue and have people come in and tell me about their personal experiences, and it'll make it much richer information.
We talk to folks across the industry on a regular basis about all kinds of things, but also about what's going on with their deployments on the various platforms that they use. And that's important to us because we're constantly trying to keep track of where in the process they are so that we can get them to load their inventory into Fastener's Clearinghouse. And the continuous, almost universal bugaboo that we hear is the data conversion portion of a deployment. That's just one of the big problems that everyone seems to have. And I know you're going to be covering that in your blog, but what do you see that's a common denominator between some of the organizations that have an easier time and a harder time with this issue?
Yeah, there's more than one aspect to that. Sometimes the old systems just have bad information. You know, the older systems didn't have enough fields to properly record information that is needed, and so fields are being used for things other than what they were originally intended for, and there's situations where the old software only had a single part number for each part, and so alternate part numbers are entered as new additional parts, and so the same part will be in there a half a dozen times, you know, with different numbers, and they didn't have enough capacity to really keep integrated and detailed inventory information, so people would use what they refer to as non-stocked items or buyout items or whatever, and those items would be almost random information. So the part of the problem is, one problem we see is that the data that they have to convert isn't worth converting. You know, it's not valuable, it's not good. So if we see that, then we recommend to them that they use our 40,000 or so inventory items that we have a normalized part numbering scheme and a standard description and a nomenclature which they can, if they type in the part number according to the format, it'll automatically generate the description, kind of like the old FastPack method. Not the same nomenclature, but the same idea. And, you know, so in the fastener business, there's so many parts. You know, a client might have 80 or 100,000 parts in their inventory. Something like that is very helpful.
Right.
So one big problem is that the data that you're trying to convert isn't very good. Another big problem for many people, although we've beaten this one, is that the technology from one system to another is different enough that what software companies frequently do is they send programmers in to try to figure out the database structures and so forth, and then the poor client has to pay by the hour while the computer company tries to figure out where the information is that they're looking for to put into a new system, because the data structures are definitely going to be different. We've got some technology that we use that pretty much cleans that up. We have, from any of the traditional systems, traditional fastener systems, we get like 100% yield of all the data. We get everything. And even systems that we've never seen before, we're able to get, very high yields, 80 to 90% of all the data that's in that old system, if it's any good at all. If it's worth taking, we'll get it. So the result is that when people put our system in, it looks as though they've been using our system for as long as they used their old system. And they do that without having a big increase, a big question mark in their cost. That's a big problem. Mm-hmm. When you put a system in like this, anything you can do to control what you're actually going to spend as opposed to what they quote you is a big deal.
Do you find that one of the ways that people can get into extra costs is trying to make changes to the software that are nice to haves? How do you go about trying to discourage that?
I absolutely find the same, and we came from a custom program environment, and in the old days, when somebody wanted this little special thing and that little special thing, we would encourage that because that's how we made our money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we flipped on that. We said if we were to pick a particular individual market, one industry, and really focus in on that industry, and we built a system with the amount of flexibility that we knew that we needed because of our custom clients, then we should be able to satisfy that industry without having a bunch of extra custom programming. And surely whatever little things that we did have to do, we could include in the package and put a flag on it so that anyone in the industry could use that feature if they wanted to, and then we would have a single set of programs to update so that everybody, and this is in fact, that was our theory back 20 years ago. Today, that's true. Every single client that has the Business Edge has, there's different versions. I mean, we've had different upgrades and whatever, but they always have the core system. Everybody's got all of the capability on their system. Right. So when we fix the bug, it gets fixed for everybody. And we change something, it changes for everybody. So the economy of that in terms of being able to deliver quality software and have it fully tested in different environments and so forth is tremendous. And the savings to the clients is just unbelievable.
That brings up a question that everybody is interested in, and I suppose this is a crystal ball type of question, Denny, so I don't know if it's fair, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You're a distributor. You know that you need to get yourself reorganized, and you know that you need to invest in some technology. How do you begin this search? What do you look for, and how do you go about evaluating software to find one that best suits your needs?
Okay, the first thing you really need to do is you need to look at what you're doing and what you're trying to do internally. And forget about the software. Don't look at any software package until you have an idea about what your needs are. And your existing software may be satisfying a lot of needs you have, and there may be big gaps in what you are able to do in your software and what you actually need. You may find that you have whole entire manual systems that are wrapped around your software because your software is inadequate in this case or another. And those are the things you want to know going in. You want to be able to have some kind of a measurement, of the new software. Is it going to solve those things, and is it also going to meet these benchmarks of other things that your software does? And if you go start looking at software and poking around, you're going to have all these salesmen with their smooth presentations on all the features that their systems do, and they may or may not have anything at all to do with what you need. The problem is it still gets back down to the same thing. If it isn't directly and specifically relevant to the particular things that your company needs, then you're either going to spend a fortune in custom programming, getting it to try to be what your company needs, or you're going to use 10% of it, like so often happens, or fail. So it's very, very important to understand what it is that's important to your company before you start the process. That's what my blog is about, actually.
And also, what I've seen is it's really important to get a buy-in over all the people who are going to use it. Even though they may not all be decision makers, they all have to really decide this is what's going to work, because it's easy to make something fail.
Right,
Everyone's got to be on board.
If they're not behind it, it's going to fail.
Right.
Pretty much, that's for sure. Yeah, sometimes I'll see presidents of companies, and they'll come swooping in and make this decision, and they'll buy software based on whatever the crazy reason is. Somebody that they know at the country club that has the same software or whatever. And then they'll start trying to implement it, and their people will resist it. And when I say resist, I mean sabotage it.
Yeah.
And then they can't get it installed. It never works. It never gets installed. We have our clients fill out a survey form before we even do a demonstration, and the survey form asks them a lot of specific questions about how they do things, and then we try to demonstrate, not a generic demonstration, but a very specific demonstration of what they need, what their system is going to have to do in order for them to be satisfied. And it really helps clear up, because we don't talk in generalities. We talk very specifically about what they're trying to get accomplished, and we uncover things in the demonstrations even that are things that are going to be important to them in the implementation, and it's pretty interesting.
So, Denny, a question for you. When you started off in 1981, most of your companies or your clients would have been using, I guess in those days would be mini computers, AS400s, that sort of thing.
Paper and pencil, mostly.
or paper. And in the years since then, we've seen that people now have PCs on their desks, probably not on every desk in the fastener industry, but one day it will be. How do you keep ahead of the technology so that you know that you're not going to wake up one day and find that your own technology is becoming a little out of date? What process do you have for ensuring that you are putting, you're looking to see where is technology going and how people using technology so that your own software can take advantage of that or be positioned for it?
We made a decision, this is back in 2000, to go with a Linux operating system, an open source sort of environment. Our software specifically isn't open source, but it has included in it many open source capabilities and functions.
Right. Okay.
And the interesting thing about the open source community is that there's I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of people that are constantly developing and working on Linux and on capabilities in Linux and so forth that are available to us, that we're able to use. And the support that we get from the community when we run into an issue is just incredible. It's so much better than what we used to experience when we tried to do things with Microsoft and with the more quote conventional approach. The result is, for example, we have a new graphical interface that we developed, and the software that was used to develop the interface is 4 years old. It was started 4 years ago, and because of the way this thing is set up, the entire look and feel of our system can be changed by a user. They can change the colors. They can change in many different ways because of tools that were built that we didn't build. They're part of the open source process. Mm-hmm. It's Ajax and EXTJS and things that our clients wouldn't know anything about, but or many of them wouldn't know about. But the thing is that these tools are continuously being developed at a pace that's way more rapid than the conventional, I'm going to hire a programmer and get it done but in-house type of thing. And yet, when we use them, they are fully integrated into our system. They're not patches, and they're not best chance communication kind of things. They're real. I mean, it's tightly organized and tightly integrated. And the whole thing runs in Adobe Air, which has only been out for a couple of years itself.
Right.
And Adobe Air is a platform-independent method of delivering software, and we can run our software on Linux workstations, on any kind of device that you could imagine, any PC, any kind of PDA, pick a thing, because we're platform-independent with Adobe.
Yes, the AIR, or the AIR, is a very advanced concept, even when it first came out. And it had the promise, and I think it's delivered largely on that promise of the so-called write once, run anywhere, ability to run something across all sorts of different platforms, be they Macintoshes or Windows machines or Linux workstations, Is that the complete client for your system, or is that an optional client?
Well, that is the client that people are gravitating toward. We still have a character-based client, which a lot of people really like because it's very fast. And they both work off the same database, and in fact, they're both driven by the same exact programs.
Yep.
It's not a separate set of things. It's just the presentation is created inside our application to handle either situation, to handle a graphical interface or a character-based interface. So the people in the company that don't want the Windows look and feel and whatever, they can stay with a character-based system if they choose to. And the people who wouldn't look at the system unless it was graphical and, mouse and click and blah, 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 they absolutely, get exactly what they want too. All the data in the system can go into Excel with the click of a button. The concepts that we've put together are extremely useful. In other words, we looked at what the real user environment is. What do they have to do? They need this information in the system, and they need it into some kind of an Excel spreadsheet, something where they can easily manipulate it. And they don't need to know. They don't want to know about the data structures and the underlying things that have to happen for that to work. They just want to be able to push a button. Well, in our system, every user that has permission to can push a button and get the information, do whatever they have to do with it.
Right, that would suit us dramatically, because the biggest problem we have in dealing with a lot of our existing and even new potential customers is the fact that is the brick wall they come up to when it's faced with how do they get their inventory listings to us to actually stick on the web. Ultimately, it has to come to a spreadsheet or some PDF or somehow, but getting it out of the database is the problem.
Let's turn the direction of the conversation a little bit here to the current market and what we're seeing out there. I know from talking with you before the show, Denny, that Computer Insights is actually doing pretty well right now, especially with the Business Edge 2.0 upgrades that many of your users are doing. And I'm just curious if the current market is forcing changes in the way that fastener distributors are doing business that are creating new demands on your software. Are you seeing any of that?
My story on what's going on in the industry hasn't changed over the last 5 years or so. I was interviewed by Alexander Haig on World Business Review. He asked me, he said, what do you see in the future for the fastener industry? And I told him, our clients are going to have to do more work in less time with fewer people, and they're going to have to do all that without any kind of standards to help them smooth out and make that more efficient. Everything is like a Tower of Babel. And you know what? 5 years later, I can make that same statement, and I think it'll be still dead on. So there's pressure from the customers who want more services, more everything, more services, better prices, better delivery. It's got to be perfect delivery these days. And at the same time, the vendors are now starting to once again push the raw material prices up again. So now once again the fastener distributor is getting squeezed. If they don't figure out a way to manage their inventory, use barcodes in their warehouse and have a wireless warehouse and somehow push that information up the stream, electronically as much as they possibly can, deal with their vendors electronically as much as they can. Those are the things that are going to happen for the fastener companies to survive, frankly. Since we only work with fastener companies and all we care about is this industry, every single thing we develop has to do with somehow squeezing some of the cost out of running a fastener company or improving the performance of our fastener clients to their customers.
So I guess it would be fair to say then from that answer that you're continuing to see the software evolve as the requirements of the industry are evolving, but really the current economic situation isn't really causing a growth spurt in any particular area.
Yeah, last year we had finished last year better than the year before, which is not.
We're not hearing a lot of that these days.
I don't think we've heard a lot of that, right? Yeah, and the clients we got this last year were all big, substantial, not necessarily big, but substantial, well-funded, well-organized. They're the kind of clients you really want to have. I mean, really good, solid companies, and they were taking advantage of the lull in the business to build their infrastructure. What a great idea!
Right.
You know, so now they're stronger going into this new time. Now things are better. You know, I talk to people all the time, and everybody's, you know, happier. You know, they're doing more business, and they're more optimistic and whatever. So this is going to be an easy year compared to last year. But last year was a great year for us.
Yeah, I did hear that from people some of the people I spoke to were saying that they had started on infrastructure. The problem is that it really requires fairly deep pockets to have the luxury of doing that.
Well, Denny, I think we could spend a long time talking about technology and probably produce many segments for Fully Threaded, but let's cut it off here and come back at another time to do that. In the meantime, we'll keep our eyes on your blog at fastenersoftware.blog.com and look forward to your ongoing elucidations.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Nice talking to both of you.
Pleasure's ours.
The government will spend several $1 billion during our next segment, but it'll cost you absolutely nothing. Stick around.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, www.semperfifund.org. Over the past 7 years, twice a year, the wonderful people who operate the Semper Fi Fund and many amazing Marines who have been the beneficiaries of the charities that have supported the Semper Fi Fund, including many thousands of individual donors, have come into my radio studio to tell their amazing stories of serving their country, of being wounded, and how the Semper Fi Fund has helped them make that transition back to recovery. Unfortunately, Bethesda and Walter Reed are full again. More and more men and women are coming back from the war injured, sometimes awfully so. We need the Semper Fi Fund to be there for these Marines and those soldiers, sailors, and airmen who served alongside of them. Please consider a gift to the Semper Fi Fund. Very low overhead, extraordinary capacity to get money where it needs to get in a hurry, and great management, including some of the senior Marines who've ever served under the flag. When you're looking for something to do that will make an impact, please check out the Semper Fi Fund. That's www.semperfifund.org, www.semperfifund.org.
This is a traveling salesman at Fastener Talk, FastenerBlog.net, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, wrapping up this edition's melange of predominantly fastener-related programming on Fully Threaded.
So, are you going to explain to us what melange means?
I think it speaks for itself in this case, don't you, Bri?
Okay, so just tell people I have to take out a French dictionary, okay? You know, I must say I found the talk from Bruce Darling absolutely fascinating. You know, he's sort of an unassuming guy, but he has such a deep knowledge of the fastener industry.
That's true.
So we have to make sure, and all the other listeners do, to come back to listen to part 2 of this in episode 30 of Fully Threaded.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping you're going to be here, Bri. I'm kind of counting on it.
Okay, so where could I be? I mean, I could be hiding in my room programming with all the doors closed and the phones and everything shut off.
Oh, well, don't even talk to me about that. I always know when you're in the throes of one of these magnificent development projects, especially one that you're really hot on, because I can't reach you. That you won't come onto Skype. You don't answer your emails. All I know is 2 weeks later we get this miracle piece of code. That's the way it works over here, folks.
Right. And hopefully all our users benefit from that. We'd all like to think that.
Well, I think they will. I think this is a big turn for Fasteners Clearinghouse, and people are going to like it. They're going to get a lot of benefit out of it, and I hope that it'll really help the industry.
Right. And it's not going to be one single thing that it's going to be a set of enhancements that come out over a decent period of time. The whole set of things, all of which we are doing, that will really enhance the user experience on FCH.
And we will keep you advised of all the developments, folks, provided I can occasionally get Brian on Skype, that is.
Right. This is true.
But you're right about Bruce Darling's presentation. It was fantastic. On episode 30, we'll have part 2, and he covers a lot of ground. Some of it has to do with some of the more current forces that are impacting pricing. And also, he talks a little bit about some of the behind-the-scenes goings-on with the heads and threads negotiations. Everybody's going to be very interested to hear about that.
Right. You know, he made a really, really interesting, very short comment that is really, really true. He said, what steel does, we do.
Right. As an industry, he was making that point, and that's very, very true. You know, he talks a lot about China during this second part too, and let's just hope that it soon doesn't turn into what China says we do, we do.
Right. Right. We all secretly suspect that is going to be the case, but it's not written in stone, okay?
No, well, we've got to get this spending problem under control. I don't know how that's going to happen, but listen, that's what really needs to happen, and I think people are beginning to wake up and understand that. Speaking of which, we should point out...
Yeah, some people are beginning to wake up, okay? People have actually thought about it properly.
Okay, fair enough. Well, spread the word. And some people who are doing that include an organization called Concerned Women for America Legislative Action Committee. And they were the ones who put together the video that we had the audio from at the top of the show. You can check that out either on our Facebook page or their website is www.spenditall.com. Watch the video. It's pretty funny, even though it's very serious.
Yeah. They point out you have to have a bit of levity occasionally to relieve the strain of the pressing issues surrounding us.
Well, the point is well made. And so thanks to them for that video and the audio that we borrowed from it for the show opener. And while we're at it, we should also thank our guests on today's episode. And they were, of course, Bruce Darling from Porteous Fastener Company, Denny Cowhey, CEO of Computer Insights, Jay Queenin, the Vice President of the NFDA, and everybody's favorite Indians fan, Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International Magazine.
Okay, he'll like that.
Well, despite all the action, he stays focused on the fastener industry, so hats off to him.
Right.
We sure do appreciate you joining us and listening into every episode, and we hope to hear your thoughts. So please communicate with us anytime, and you can do so at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com, or check out our Twitter posts under the handle Fully Threaded. Please do follow us, and we'll be sure to follow you right back.
Right, and you know that you can subscribe to Fully Threaded. You can do so on your iPhone. You can subscribe to the podcast on a BlackBerry, and you can also listen to it straight on the web.
And it sounds great no matter which one of those options you use, folks.
Right. And I got another email today from one of our members who says that he really values the Fully Threaded for when he's on a long car trip, and he can sit and listen to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of road warriors out there who take Fully Threaded with them, and we sure do appreciate all of you being out there, guys. one of our biggest audience groups is sales reps. So thanks for tuning in. And to wrap things up this week, I'm sure a lot of you saw this. There's a headline from The Telegraph. We'll put this on the Facebook page as well. Headline, Internet Explorer users have below average IQ.
So?
I think this must have sent a few shudders down the Microsoft-loving set out there.
Now, those of us in the Apple world have known this for a long time.
Oh, I know. That's why this one caught my eye. Story says, PC World reports that psychometric consulting firm called Aptiquant gave free online IQ tests to 100,000 people and then plotted the scores against the browser on which the tests were taken. It found that Internet Explorer users scored lower than average, while Chrome, Firefox, and Safari users were very slightly above average. So what do you think of that one, Brian? No surprise to you, huh?
It is no surprise to me at all. I mean, anyone who's been involved in web programming has known that the many faults hidden in IE have made it a real nightmare to program through.
Right. Well, this thing was all over the web here for a couple of days at the beginning of the week, and it concludes with another dig. Within the group of IE users, version 6 users scored lowest, while users of version 8 do rather better.
Well, I'm not sure, what that really means. Now, I would point out that there is a comment in very small writing under the heading that says the story reporting that IE users had below average IQ is a hoax. Say reports, okay?
Well, I was going to say that. That's right. And so, folks, it might sound too good to be true if you're someone who likes to rip on Microsoft. But, yeah, the story appears to be a little bit of a tall tale, shall we say?
Yeah. And you know that for safety and common sense, you can always go and use Safari or Chrome, which is based on that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're Captain Safari, being the Macintosh user, right?
That's right. And, it seems like they might be doing something right. Well, we all know that anyway. But because there's a comment in the Financial Post that came out Thursday of last week headed, US balance now less than Apple cash. And they point out that as of Thursday last week, the US Treasury Department had $73 billion in cash, and Apple had cash reserve of $75 billion.
Oh, boy.
Thank you, current government, okay?
Wow. We just can't get away from this story, man.
Right.
But there's a little bit of a silver lining in it, I guess, for me, because I guess it makes me feel a little bit smarter. See, I was one of the last guys I know to still use Netscape, when all the browsers, the next generation browsers came in. So maybe because I'm an iPhone user, on the smart side to balance things off, I'm kind of middle of the road now. What do you think?
You so call that middle of the road.
Well, I'll take what I can get, man.
Okay, I would have followed you too.
And why don't we leave it there for episode 29?
Sounds like a plan, okay?
It's been great having you with us, folks. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
I can't think of anything else to say at the moment, okay?